Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Nerd Initiative. My name's Off the Cuff Tom, Nerd Initiative's pop culture connoisseur. I am coming at you live and direct straight from the Sanctum of Awesome. But you know what? This isn't about me today. We are finally talking Power Rangers here on the channel. And you guys know I have been a champion of Power Rangers for 30 plus years, obviously now. I do all the reviews on here. If there's anything Ranger related, it all comes to me. And having that said, I can't believe that the first Ranger that I've able to bring over here to the Nerd Initiative is the one and only. She is the second longest Power Ranger, having done 90 episodes, if I did my math right. You're the only Ranger to have worn, female Ranger, to have worn three different sets of powers, three different whole suits. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have Miss Catherine Sutherland with me.
Hi, it's actually four, I think,
Or
because if you count Ninjetti.
that's true. I keep forgetting the
Yeah.
pajamas. You know.
The cozy pajamas. Yes. How are you, Tom? Nice to meet you.
Well, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I know we had a quick passing at New
Yes.
York, so big thank you to my friends down there who introduced me to you. And this is exciting because I believe now you're the last Mighty Morphin Ranger color, at least, so I can finish out my whole set for me to
Awesome.
interview.
Awesome.
So let's get right into it. Let's start at Mighty Morphin. What was it like for you to come over here to the States and, audition for Rangers, and especially coming in at the time where there was a lot of transition with all the different actors? You came in a little bit differently because, we had the Stone Canyon kids who like, okay, 1 to 2. All right, done. But your character had a little bit of a story a few episodes beforehand before you became the Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger.
Yes. I know it's kind of surprising I say this a lot, but I didn't know Power Rangers at all. It had only recently started in Australia, and I was a 20-year-old, so it wasn't really in my wheelhouse to look for a kids show. But when I was cast, I was able to watch it, so I knew who my mates were going to be, and I didn't know I was going to be replacing anybody. I thought I was an addition to the cast. So when I found out that I was going to be replacing Amy, it was a lot of pressure. So yes, when I found out I was going to be replacing Amy Jo and that she was going to be moving on from the show, there was a lot of pressure on me to make sure that I was accepted and do a good job, obviously. I loved when I first came on the show, I loved that I didn't have that pressure because I was just the evil character trying to destroy the Rangers, and I loved how they introduced me. It was really fun to play an evil character, and get to play like that. So yeah, it was a big culture shock for me coming to America. I lived in Sydney, but just a huge shift in culture and coming onto an already established show. They were like family to each other, but they embraced me and were so kind, and it all worked out for the best in the end. So yeah.
Now, everybody at the time, a lot of folks didn't know here in the States about, your Super Sentai counterparts. And, I know the Fox and Saban did their best to try and stretch Mighty Morphin as much as they possibly could. What was it like for you and the rest of your cast to find out about the switch over to the Zeo powers at that point?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back how we found out about that because originally there was supposed to be a Zeo movie. We were going to
Hmm.
be doing a Zeo movie and then moving into the episode, but they ended up doing the Alien Rangers.
Yep.
So we knew that we were going to have a slight break and then come back with new costumes. And I hadn't seen any of the Sentai footage, so I didn't know what I was, until the fitting, I didn't know what our costumes were going to be looking like. I really liked Zeo. I really liked the shift. I thought it was really like a really powerful introduction to that season. And I'm sure it was weird for the kids to be like, hold on a second, because the original costumes were so iconic to the fans. But I thought it was a really nice transition. Of course, when we got the Gold Ranger as well, and all the mystery and of that was really fun. I wasn't a huge fan of the Machine Empire, but the most exciting thing for us was after we came back was seeing the new command center. That was like, whoa, this is like a real set because the old The old command center was really shoddy. Like you would step on the platform where the viewing globe and all of that was, and it would shake, buttons would pop off. Like it was very we had Christmas lights, there were twinkling lights. It was very low budget. But when we came back for Zio, we had this beautiful new command center. With I loved how they had the old Mighty Morphin costumes in the
Oh
back, and
yeah.
it was pretty epic. So yeah.
Yeah, when you guys upgraded the power chamber, I would never have thought on set to think of that because looking back, yeah, the original set, that was probably just a closet with some drapes and some Christmas lights, and there you go,
Yeah,
you're all
it
set.
was it was in the same room. It was just a lot smaller. They opened it all up when we got the power chamber, but um yeah, we had Zordon. Now we had the column with Zordon, and
Hmm.
instead of the viewing globe, and yeah, it was just a whole new experience. And they upgraded the juice bar, and it was just we felt like, oh, they're investing money in the show now. So that
Some of
was
those
really.
roses finally started coming back, and they put it
No,
back
no
in again.
residuals, no
Oh
residuals.
no,
It was
no.
non-union,
Oh
so
man.
there was no residuals.
Well,
No,
somebody was getting some money, and so they put it back
we all
somewhere.
know who that was.
Anyhow, so Zio, I think for me was probably one of the smartest seasons that was written in that Zordon era.
Yes.
I think that they took some great artistic liberties, and you had this great episodes like King for a Day, and
Mm.
you mentioned the Gold Ranger. I think it was by far some of the best of episodes.
Yeah,
Now,
best, I think really great storylines and really good moral messages too. Like you really got to have, I liked in Zio how you really got to have get to know the characters and
mhm,
and what they were about and what their passions were. And we had really strong character development in that season, I felt.
yeah,
So
the characters weren't very flat and one-sided to
yes.
just fit the little boxes.
Yes, exactly.
And then
Exactly.
going on from that, next thing we had was the Turbo movie, and then you
Yes.
transitioned into Turbo. So what was that like for you to, oh, hey, I came across Pacific Ocean to just go back across to go and film this?
Um, well, so when it all looks like it was longer to you guys when you were watching it, but I joined the cast in June 95 and filmed till October. And then I went home and I came back and did a couple of episodes of the Alien Rangers. And then we got a little bit of a break, not long, like maybe 2 weeks, not even. And then we came back for Zio. So even though Nakia and I were on, like, it seems like I was on the show longer than her, it actually was only a couple of months
Hmm.
that her and I. So, and then we filmed the 52 episodes of Zio and went straight into the Turbo movie. We did about 6 weeks of fight training, I think it was. So Zio, we finished Zio, and then the timeline was kind of, we didn't really have any time off because we were prepping for the movie.
Right.
Um, and then we filmed the movie in California, a little bit in Hawaii, which I didn't go to Hawaii. A little, Jason and I went to Tennessee, and then a little bit in Northern California. The waterfall rapid scene was in Northern
Hmm.
California, and the waterfall was in Tennessee. Um, so yeah, in the movie we filmed very quickly, and we wrapped that and didn't really have any time off before we started the Turbo season. So it was all very like back to back. Yeah, did that answer your question?
Oh yeah, just the power coin keeps rolling. I get it. I get
Yes, yes.
it.
It's so funny because everyone's like, "What did it feel like when you were Zio Turbo?" It didn't feel different. It was just a different costume. We had
Mhm.
different villains and we had different co-stars coming in, but it really felt like the same show. It didn't feel like, because we were the same characters, it didn't feel like a huge shift to us as we were filming it.
Now, after your team decided to head off and go their ways, and we had the new cast come in for Turbo, the next time I believe you came back was for the Forever Red episode specifically. A lot of people don't realize that you voiced one of the Machine
Tesla.
Empire Tesla, exactly.
Yes.
Did you know where those suits came from, by the way?
No, I don't know. I haven't even seen that whole episode. I just know Scott. who, God rest his soul, has passed away now, but he and I remained very close after I left the show, and he would bring me in to do. He was working at Mattel. He worked at Power Rangers for a long time, and then when he left Power Rangers, he went on to work at Mattel. So he was always calling me back, saying, "Let's get you some residuals. Do you want to do voice this monster, or do you want to voice this character, or whatever?" So I was always going back doing little things for him. And then when he went to Mattel, I did a lot of voices for toys and cartoons and things for him. But yeah, he just said, "There's this cool character, Tesla. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Sure." So I went back and voiced it. I don't think I've even seen it or heard it since.
So interestingly enough, I'm probably gonna. So your characters, all those characters that you did as the generals of the Machine Empire, were leftover costumes from Big Bad Beetleborgs.
Really?
Yep.
Oh,
So
that's so interesting.
they were your cool cousin, cool Sentai cousin counterpart.
Yes. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. There you go.
Yeah,
You guys are
technically
always
you
teaching
were.
me something.
Yep, you were Lady Borg, because
Lady Borg.
yeah, because they couldn't, figure out a smart name except it's a girl.
So the Machine Empire came back in Forever Red then.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I
Now,
thought Rita blew them up. No.
they were dispersed, it's because
got it.
TV.
TV and dimensions, different dimensions.
Exactly. And even
Got
better.
it.
Wow, that's an even better segue. Like you've done this once or twice. So speaking of dimensions, we go further in the career and we've got Ninja Steel, the 25th anniversary, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Now, at that point, the franchise has been sold multiple times. We've gone back and forth from Saban to Disney. At this point, it was Nickelodeon, or was this Hasbro at this point? Well, it was that weird mishmash.
Was it has? I think it might have been No, it was back to Saban.
It was
Saban again. Yeah, and then it went from Saban to Hasbro. Yeah.
So what was it like on set? One, coming back after all this time. Two, and what was the actual feeling for you as an actor coming back to set? How it's been like, because I know I've heard the stories of what it was like filming Mighty Morphin, years and years ago versus filming Rangers as they do nowadays. What was it like for you coming back?
I was really excited to come back and do something. Like I was asked to do Megaforce for the 20th anniversary, and then that didn't work out. And then I came back for this one, and I was really excited to do something and like show my character and where she's been. And it was a little not disappointing. It was a little underwhelming, I guess, because we were really just cameos. They didn't really show anything to do with our characters. It didn't even seem like Tommy and Rocky and Kat even knew each other that well. And Kat's supposed to be married to Tommy. It was kind of odd. But I was really excited to go back and obviously go to New Zealand. And I got to work with people I'd never worked with before. Like Jason Font and I are very close. He's like a brother. And so I got to work with Jay. He's the best. Got to work with him and Ciara and all of the Ninja Steel cast were wonderful. Selwyn and I got to work together again. It was really, really fun. And we had a great time. The set, it was so different though, because we were treated very differently to how we were treated on the show when we were on it back, 25 years ago. It was had a much higher budget. Just filming New Zealand, different sets, it was very nostalgic, but also very different. But I got such a kick out of watching the kids, like the cast of Ninja Steel.
You can say it, the kids.
They are kids to me. They're much younger than me. But just watching them interact and everything was just so endearing, because I just remember what that was like for us. Like watching them just reminded me of what it was like when we were on the show, and how grateful I am to be a part of this franchise. So it was fun, really fun.
Now you morphed back into Turbo Pink. Did they give you a choice of the Zeo or Turbo powers?
It must have been something to do with the footage they were using, because they said Turbo, which I thought was interesting, because I know Patricia had done Turbo for the Megaforce. Oh no, she did Space. Did she do Space?
Patty did Space for that one.
She did Space. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why they chose Turbo because of my seasons, I would say I'm more known for Zeo.
Hmm.
Um,
I wonder if they went with the
and
last known power that you had.
maybe no, because Tommy did all of his powers, and
Well,
Steve did Mighty Morphin. He didn't do Zeo.
yeah.
I don't know, but a lot of people were disappointed about that. But the one thing I just have to acknowledge, because the listeners are going to probably bring it up, is my turbo morpher. There's a picture where it shows me with the key in the bottom, which is not correct. It was the top, but that key was like double the size of our turbo key. The morpher
Mhm.
did not look like the morpher that I had. And the director was like, this doesn't feel right. And he says, don't worry about it. And I was like, okay. I'm like, the fans are gonna bust your chops about this, but okay. They came after me, not the director, but it was not the correct turbo morpher. So if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. That's why they got it right in the Once and Always. They did it really well.
So what we'll do is we'll start a whole new hashtag campaign well after the fact, not my turbomorpher.
Yeah, there you go. Not my decision.
Exactly.
Yes,
And then everything that has been going on since you mentioned, Kat and Tommy were married.
yes,
Let's talk real quick about Soul of the Dragon, and then particularly one of my favorites is the fact that you had that amazing story written by Melissa Flores in the 30th
yes.
anniversary special comic book. What was that like for you to see your character now portrayed in that very not talked about time and age, to see
Mm.
where they are? What was that like for you?
Well, Jason had reached out to me when he was approached by Boom to write that comic, and he said he wanted to show a story with Kat and Tommy, and he kind of had shared it with me. I was like, oh, that's so cool, and they had the child, so he was the one that kind of came up with that idea in collaboration with the writer, and I really loved Soul of the Dragon. I loved seeing like their child become a ranger and all of that, but they never explained how Tommy went from Reefside to Cat. Like, how did they reconnect? So Melissa had reached out to me. She's a friend of mine, and she's so talented.
She's
And she
wonderful.
said she's the best. And she said, I'm writing an origin story for Cat and Tommy's love, and I was like, that's so cool. And so she asked me a bunch of questions. We consulted a little bit on, where she saw Cat now and how they may have reconnected, and so we just kind of brainstormed a little bit, and I just loved what she did with the story, and I loved the art. I just thought it was a lovely way of showing that particular storyline. And I know Amy Jo has a whole series too with the return of like what happens if they never broke up, and
Hmm.
so that's really cool too. I love seeing all these different fan fiction ideas out there because it allows everybody to have their story come true. And there's different versions, different dimensions, different fandoms for different characters. So I really love that.
I gotta say, one of my favorite panels is obviously you just, stepping right on the scene there, wedding dress and power blaster. Just like,
Yes,
yep.
I know.
I'm
So
like,
awesome.
yep.
I was like, she's
I'd
a
marry that
badass.
chick. Yeah, I'd marry her. Yeah, in a
Yeah,
heartbeat.
she's well, that's one thing I loved about Kat was she was very feminine and gentle and maternal and nurturing. But she was really able to handle herself on her own. And that's the beautiful thing about the girls in Power Rangers. They don't rely on the boys. They're part of the team,
Hmm.
just they're equal parts of the team. And I think that's a great role model for a little girl is you can be feminine, but you can be tough and handle yourself as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So going from the comic, we'll go from the comic back to the screen. Once and
Yes.
always. What?
Yes.
Just spill, just gush, just go on. I'm just gonna sit here like this.
Uh,
See you think.
well, it was a quite a long time in the making. I don't know if you knew this, but David Yost had written a whole bunch of
Oh yeah.
scripts and pitched it. So it was. I really give a lot of credit to David for kind of getting the ball rolling and getting them thinking about that. I think that it was really what was lacking in some of the past anniversary specials was they didn't really give the fans that like everything they wanted, and part of that is to do with budget and timing. They didn't how much could we do in a 25-minute episode. So David had kind of proposed it as being a special, like a special edition. So I'd started hearing about it. They'd reached out to me. Jason Frank had reached out to me to mention that they were thinking about it, and so they were talking to all of us and all of the Mighty Morphin cast, and then the storyline had changed quite significantly from what Jason had originally told me that he had read, which was in the original version. He kind of went rogue after Trini is killed, and no one can find him, and so they're all looking for Tommy. They need him to be part of the team, and so they come to Kat, and they need her help to find Tommy. So that was kind of the original version of the story, and then Jason decided he didn't want to do it, and so they had to kind of redirect the storyline. So I think they did a really good job of covering most of the stuff that the fans wanted. I think it was a really, really great special. Obviously, there was certain things, like it would have been wonderful to have Amy and Austin and Jason there. But unfortunately, everyone was asked, and for whatever reason, conflicts in schedule or just, for whatever reason, they weren't able to be a part of it. And so I know that fans were disappointed about that. It would have been wonderful to have Bulk and Skull there in person instead of just on the flyer, the billboard.
It's always a good time to have Paul anywhere. Let's be honest, Paul and Jason.
But they are just joy. The two of them,
really
they're
are.
just pure joy, and they really are so incredibly talented. Like they are like. Jason's a doctor. I don't know if you know that.
Yep.
He's of theater, and he works in a school. He teaches. He's just so talented, and Paul as well. I did years ago when we left the show. We did Hamlet, and Paul directed it, and I was Ophelia, and Paul was Hamlet, and Jason was in it. He's my brother in it. So it was really really cool to see to be able to act with them in that capacity because they're so talented.
And it's a whole different type of acting, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Shakespeare is it's different ball game. So and I loved that we got to have Aisha and Adam there. Of course, I would love my girl Nakia to have been there. But I wish it had been a little bit longer, because if it was a little bit longer, they could have you could have understood how Aisha and Adam ended up in the SPA in the space, and we could have seen just a little bit more. Maybe we could have seen JJ and
20 minutes. That's all we need. An extra 20 minutes.
Just a little bit more. But I loved that I got to be Kat, mature version of Kat, and you got to see her fight and see what she'd become, and I loved that. So
speaking of Kat and where she, speaking of mom Kat and older Kat, I'm not going to say old because
well, kind of
all you Power Rangers actors just don't age. You guys are timeless.
That's very sweet.
There's something in the Morphin grid. Like, honestly, I'm doing my homework for another project, and I'm like, this guy can't be in his 50s. That's not.
Oh, Walter Jones is like a vampire, I think.
Oh, absolutely. But speaking of JJ, if you wanted to see him, who would be your fan cast to play JJ? I have my idea.
I'm just trying to think of current young actors. That's a really good question. I have no idea.
Well, if we were going more towards the Soul of the Dragon, I was thinking maybe like a Boo Boo Stewart. If you're familiar with him from The Descendants, he played a character.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. I know.
Because obviously Soul of the Dragon JJ would have been about, late teens, early 20s, and he's got one of those baby faces as well who could have pulled it off. I don't know who would have been that perfect fit for a teenage JJ. So
yeah, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head that I would say, maybe the kid from Cobra Kai, the one that played, the good looking kid with the nemesis. What's his name? I can't even think of his name. He's
Daniel
beautiful.
Russo's son, yeah.
Yeah,
Or no,
yeah. No,
no, the
not
other one.
Daniel's son. No,
Um,
Daniel's got. He's the one that he kind of adopted in.
yeah.
He's the bad boy.
Oh, I
He's
can't
Johnny's
remember.
son. Johnny's
Yeah.
son. I
All I
can't
know is
think of
he's
his
got a
name.
Power Ranger figure. I know that eventually.
Yeah, yeah. He'd be good because he's an amazing martial artist. And then there was a show kicking it. Is that what it was called?
Yep, it
Disney
was on
show.
Disney show. Yep.
Okay, that kid reminded me so much of Jason Frank, the kid in that. He reminded me so much of Jason as a young kid.
Mhm.
So he would looks wise, I think he would have been good. But yeah, I like to think JJ was like his personality was a little feisty, a little mysterious. Yeah. Anyway, be interesting to see if they ever do something with that character.
I think it'd be fun. Now, we all know that, Tommy had gone on to become Dr. O and did Reefside. He was the secret nerd as you called him out in the comic, or as Melissa
Yes.
did. What would Kat be doing? What would her occupation be? I mean, this is you've got carte blanche. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, in the comic book, they kind of indicated that she'd been working with the United Nations or like doing some kind of giving back to the world. She was very about community, and so I could see her doing like maybe after she left, Angel Grove, she probably went on to the Peace Corps or something like that. I could see her being a doctor because she was such a like taking care of people kind of person, like maybe a pediatric surgeon or something like that, working in villages to help families. And I just see her doing something good that way. Like she was a very like a doer. Yeah, so that's and maybe in her older years she became a teacher or something like that.
Oh, that'd be
So
wonderful. Now we're going to
yeah,
transition from Kat on screen to Kat yourself. What are
yes,
some of the things that you've been doing post Rangers? Obviously, we know you've been doing the convention scene for many,
a while.
many, many, yeah, quite some
Yes,
time. And you have, Power Rangers playback with Nakia. Um,
yes.
you've stayed in the community and you've
Mhm.
also helped bolster this wonderful and beautiful safe space for all of us,
Mm,
fans.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. What else do you have going on right now? I mean, what's some of the best moments you've had either at the convention or, interacting like this with folks? I mean,
Hmm.
it's been
Well,
how long? And there's got
yeah,
to be stories.
I I started doing conventions in 2009. So when I left the show, I was still acting. I did a bunch of stuff, and then decided after I got married, the industry just was not for me at that point. I just felt like I was kind of losing myself. I was feeling all my insecurities, and I just didn't feel like I was doing it for the right reasons anymore. And so I stepped away, and I had my babies, and I was raising my kids, and I was teaching personal training for a little bit, just to keep myself busy, and um, I was still doing commercials. My daughter and I and my son, we did several jobs together. And then in 2009, I got a call from a fan. His name's JC. He actually owns Henshin Vault. And
Okay,
he
yeah.
reached out to me through Facebook and said, "Would you be interested in doing a convention?" I didn't know what that was. I was like, "What's a convention and for what show?" And I was like, "Power Rangers is still on." I was so out of it. And he said, "Yeah, I'll make up a picture for you." Because I was like, "Do I need to bring anything?" So he made up one. I had one image, and then I had a couple of headshots.
Hmm.
And I show up at Anime Expo 2009, and there was thousands of people there. It
Oh my
was
goodness.
crazy. I couldn't believe people even remembered who I was or cared. And that was kind of the beginning. And at that convention, I met Scott Zillner, who runs Power Morphicon,
You mean
and he was
Scott like this?
Scott. And he invited me to Power Morphicon. And then that just opened my eyes to going, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this was still making such an impact on people. When I was on the show, I felt like, um, we would visit hospitals and we'd have kids visit the sets and
Right.
everything. And I felt like I was making an impact there, but I didn't know that you just don't think about this worldwide impact. And I didn't know it was still going. So I started doing conventions. And at the beginning, it was like one to or two, and then it was like four, and then now like last year I did so many like conventions last year, and appearances. And then yeah, it's just such a gift to hear people's stories and to be a positive influence in people's life like that. And I get so much more out of it than I think you guys get. I don't think you realize like how grateful I am. I just feel like in our world, in this world that's full of all this darkness and craziness, it's so wonderful to be able to be a light and a hero to somebody
Hmm.
and give them encouragement. And then the stories that they share back with me, they just fill my bucket so much. Like I cry at every single signing or convention. Someone will make me cry. There's one story that just like punches me in the heart and just like, oh, anyway. So when the reason Power Rangers Playback came about is Nikki and I were in Scotland at a convention and it was dead. There was hardly anyone there. But we were sitting next to these two guys, Troy Baker and Nolan North, who are very
Oh
well
yeah.
known.
Oh, those
Yes,
guys. Yeah.
yes,
No, you
those
don't
guys.
know who's that? No.
They're so awesome. They're amazing. But they had this huge line, and the line was like we noticing people wearing these shirts that said Retro Replay, and we were like, "What's Retro Replay?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we have a channel together," because they were best friends at the time, and they would play their games
Hmm.
and talk about it. And I was like, "That's brilliant!" And it's like so great for their community. And so Nikia and I were sitting there going, "We should do something like that for our fans. Like they would love to hear about." What we were doing when we're on the show or what we thought about certain episodes, and we could do a commentary. So that's kind of how it started. We were going to watch our episodes and do a commentary on what it was like, what was going on. Well, the day before we were about to release it, we got all these copyright claims from Hasbro and Toy saying, no, 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 that's our footage. You can't do this. So we had to like regroup, and then COVID happened and the world shut down, and we had so much time to be creative and come up with ideas and ask fans and see what people wanted, what kind of community they wanted, what kind of content they wanted.
Hmm.
And so we started doing skits and game show, and we were like coming up with all kinds of things Power Ranger related that would be fun for you guys. So then it kind of morphed into membership because people wanted to talk to us, and we were like, well, what if we create a membership opportunities for them where we can do member chats, we can have a Discord channel, we can have like this platform where the fans can connect to each other, and we can be like the spearhead of that. So we started membership, and then that kind of blew up, and the channel just kind of went kind of bigger than we expected. So now we feel this responsibility to do, like, we talk to our members every month. We ask them like, what kind of merchandise do you want? Who do you want us to have on the show? Like we're very interactive with them, and we want this to be their place, like this, so it continues. And it's just been such a blessing. And obviously sharing it with Nakia, my best friend, she's my favorite person other than my husband, of course.
It don't
Is
matter.
that's a given. She's just the most wonderful, encouraging, bright light that makes me laugh till I cry. And it's so fun to be able to share it with her and give back together like that. So when I left California, I moved to Tennessee, and so it's been a little bit more challenging trying to figure it out. But we travel a lot together, so we'll film while we're traveling, and we make it work. So yeah, so there's that. And then I'm also I just started a new podcast with I met Steve Cardenas' sister, lives here in Tennessee with me. She moved here about a year after I moved, and we just completely connected. And she had this thing on the thing put on her heart. She just felt like God was calling her to do this
Mhm.
podcast about sharing inspirational stories of people's testimonies basically. And so we started that. We had our first episode last week. A new episode dropped today, and it's available on all podcast platforms. It's called Grace Begins. Um, so that's really nice to do something that's giving back in a different way, and sharing my faith and just being, a positive influence. It's not something we hesitate to call it faith-based only because we don't want people not to listen because they don't connect to the Christian aspect of it. This
Hmm.
is really more of an opportunity for people to hear stories that might inspire them and give them hope. So that's our goal with that. And then I'm also writing. I've written several children's books that need to be illustrated, but I need to get off my butt and get that happening. I'm also writing a story about my mother's life. And then I did a little pilot. Jason Font and some other guys are producing this really adorable pilot children's show. So I'm the voice of the mother of the Tooth Fairy in that. So
Okay.
she's very Julie Andrews sounding. So that's hopefully going to be coming out later this year. And yeah, starting to dip my toe back in the acting world a little bit. So that feels exciting and also a little nerve-wracking because it's been a long time. So yeah, lots of things going on over here. I've got my hands in a lot of different pots.
Well, I think that you are more than capable of spinning all these plates, all these pots, whatever type of flatware that you have, I think is in good hands. Um,
Thank you.
Aside
Thank
from
you.
that, I can't tell you how many thank yous for everything that you've done for one, the Power Ranger community, for a lot of, folks all around the world. So I just want to say thank you so much again for
Oh,
taking the time to chat with me, and that
you're
everybody out there
welcome.
on the interwebs are going to be able to hear this and see this. It's just going to be,
Oh,
it is our pleasure to absolutely have you here. You, again, being the
oh,
first Ranger guest I have over here on Nerd Initiative, and hopefully I'll bring them all
oh.
over from the other place. That's all we can call
Yes.
it.
Yes,
Don't
thank you
forget,
so much.
we also saw you on that Bloodline of the Grid, with
Oh, yes.
everything that's going on in the extended universe with Colin and DJ and Chris
Yes.
and all their fun stuff.
They're
So
doing a
again,
great job.
they're
It's so great. I
they're
love what they're
killing it.
doing. They're killing it. Yeah.
They
Yeah, I love
really
those
are.
guys.
So again, Catherine, thank you so very much for taking time with everybody,
Yeah.
and thank you to everybody out there in the internets. We'll see you soon back here on Nerd Initiative, home of positivity. And of course, it is Morphin time.
It is morphin time.